Hello everyone, my name is Jen. Welcome to the Book Refuge. And today we're going to be talking about Blood of My Blood, episode 5, Needfire. Okay, so yeah, I just had to double check myself that I was right. It is episode 5. It's the 4th week in a row we're doing it, but it is episode 5. And yeah, we're going to go through, as usual, the recap and then do some review. But I'm going to give you some initial thoughts here because there were some parts that I think were absolute fire, pun intended, in this episode. But honestly, I'm so torn because we got a lot, obviously, of like Brian and Ellen. We got some really great stuff with them that I just want to dig into. But then there was also a lot of like things I just really didn't care for this time. So I might get a little bit saucier with this one. But before I do, a few things to remember. Number one, I am really enjoying this show. And I have a lot of positive feelings overall about it. I'm also a huge fan of Outlander, so just remember that. If we want to get spicy about it or saucy about it, just remember that in general, people watching this are also fans. So just, it's not like you have to be like super nice, but don't be a brat in the comments if there's something you really dislike. That's not what we're here for. Go find a hate forum if you want to do that. But I am interested in discussing some like, do you think they're making good choices with this show and like what is happening with it? Yeah. Because I have some thoughts on that. But let's do the recap first. And then maybe I'll be able to work out those thoughts a little bit better as we go too. Anyway, so we have this episode, Needfire. And Ellen and Jocasta and Ned as well are all sent to the Beltain celebration. And it's going to be not far from Craignadoon. I believe it's happening in Inverness was the whole thing. Yeah, that's what we talked about last time. It's happening in Inverness. And so in the beginning of the episode, we actually have a flash to the end of the episode and we see Ellen being put into this dress. And let's be honest, we're supposed to kind of think it's a wedding dress because it is like a creamy white with flowers and there's a veil involved and Jocasta's coming in and saying like, are you ready for this or whatever? Lots of tension between the two of them. But then we go to the intro, and I mean, when we come back, we're actually going to have a Julia and Brian scene, but when we come back, we'll find out that we've actually now rewound to like the beginning of the day now. So that was really a flash forward to the night with the May King and Queen like celebration that's going to happen. So that was a bit of like a tease where I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's this? But she looked really beautiful. So then we come back and we come back to Julia and Brian and they're preparing to leave to go to Beltain. And one of the things I want to say too is she had a lot of her letters with it. It appears she stopped like burning her letters. I noticed that this time because she was carrying some with her. She had them in their bag and then she had taken them out again later. And I'm like, we're still not burning those? Like, I don't think we should be keeping those, especially if you're trying to pretend that this baby is the Laird's and in there you're writing to your husband about the, like, before she was burning them and I was like, okay with that, but now she seems to be keeping them. And that always makes me nervous whenever we keep evidence of our future selves around, like it's risky. But things get really complicated here and we have a bit of a psych moment, okay? I did think it was going to be very convenient for, for Julia and Henry to be able to see each other so soon. Because let's be real here, if she had went to this thing, she would have seen her husband. Because whether or not we spent the whole episode with them barely missing one another, when they both went to watch that ceremony at the end, Henry and Julia would have seen one another. So we can't have that happen so early on, apparently. And so Davina, of course, catches them trying to leave. And she says, you can't go with. Like, are you crazy? And it's just so annoying because Brian just, like, will not stick up for her. And he also is kind of like a hot, dumb guy. Is anyone else picking that up about Brian? I said I was going to get saucy, okay? I love Brian and Ellen. But the man is like missing something here, okay? He is missing something here, all right? Because Davina might say, this is your sibling that she's carrying. This is your father's child. And Julia's looking at him like, I told you I have a husband and I'm trying to find him. And he's just looking at her like, well, why didn't you tell me it was my father's child? Like he believes Davina. And I don't understand. Also, though, I would say to Julia, you should have told Brian before that the reason you need to see your husband so bad is because you were pregnant. So it's like, it's a miscommunication here between the two of them. Also, they were caught by Davina, so the jig was up anyway. But he truly seemed to believe that this was his father's child. And I'm like, son, are you really as dumb as your dad? Like, I just don't understand why people are believing that this baby is his when she clearly was at least 2+ months along when this whole shit happened anyway. Like, how fast do you think women show being pregnant around here through all those clothes? Like, legit, she looks like she's at least at like 5-6 months along is what she looks like. And I'm just like, anyway, I was getting pissy about this right off the bat, okay? Because like Brian just seemed dumb here. Okay, there are meaner words that I can say than this. I get if he had then just had to be like, well, we were caught. Guess you can't get away. But he truly seemed to believe his mother that she's pregnant with his father's child. And like Julia's looking at him like, I told you I have a husband, you know, like literally she's looking at him like that. And he's just like, I'm sorry, nope, you can't come, and leaves. Like, again, all right, I get it in some way because if we would have had Julia go, we are releasing the tension out of the Julia and Henry bubble way too soon. We have to draw that story out. But to have it be like a psych moment, I almost wish there'd been like that the father had stopped it from happening, right? I think that would have made, also that Brian wouldn't have heard that his father thinks it's his. That's the other thing too, is I'm like, is no one talking about Julia being pregnant at all? Anyway, it just didn't make any sense, guys. I'm sorry that I'm getting angry about it, but this is like old school Jenn with Outlander reviews. If you have watched old ones, you know I used to get much feistier about this. But it's one of those where I get so pissy because I'm like, the logic doesn't make sense. Like, make it make sense. If you're changing a thing, if you're doing something different, the logic was there for them to do that. All that had to happen is that Simon be the one who comes down and her being like, oh, but I want to go. And he say, no, I have the seer coming today. It also then would have made him a bit suspicious about her trying to go. So, I don't know, having Davina literally, like, out that she's pregnant by his father, and then, obviously, he knows that she's pregnant. Like, obviously, he knows that she's pregnant. He can see it. And she said, I need to desperately get back to my husband. And then Davina says, it's your father's child she's carrying. And he's just like, forgets everything she said about how badly she needs to get to her husband because she's pregnant. Like, oh my God, it didn't make any sense. And it just made Brian look dumb. Again, I get that they probably couldn't have forged on with this once Davina caught them anyway. But I just wish that his eyes had conveyed that he was kind of like, I'll help you another time. Like, you're not gonna be able to get away today. But he just seemed to believe it, which is just, I don't know. And he's dumb in some other ways we'll get into as well, okay? He is being the pretty dumb boy right now, okay? And that is just not a Fraser trait that should be happening, okay? I'm like, apparently Jamie's gonna get some of the deviousness from the Mackenzie side where he can think a few steps ahead, right? Like, if that had been, I'm just saying, you know damn well, if that was Jamie Fraser, he would have understood immediately what was actually going on. And realized what and how she needed to be helped. You know, I'm just saying, for Brian having, like, lived the life he's lived as a bastard and had it hard, like, he's still very naive about life, which, whatever. Okay, let me pull it back a little bit because now I'm going to be annoyed about something else. I told you this one was tough, okay? I'm so conflicted about this episode because, I don't know. if we took out some of the Brian and Ellen stuff, this is my least favorite episode for sure. But then it also has some absolute gold in it that makes the love story grow so much. But so much of the other side stuff, it was grating on my nerves. And that main thing right there, Jocasta. We are not pulling back on Jocasta being the #1 bitch queen. Okay, she is the #1 bitch queen. By the end of this, or by a little ways in, we're going to understand maybe more why she's so bitchy to Ellen. But it was truly like, she is see you next Tuesday the hell out of this, okay? And I really, really don't like it, you guys. I'm sorry we're ranting this week. I'm probably going to label this one a rant too, because I just don't understand what we're doing with these characters. And like, I don't know. We're manufacturing drama for people there doesn't need to be drama. There's enough drama to go around, right? I mean, at least we didn't have Colm and Dougal on top of everything today. Like, Ellen can only battle one ridiculous sibling at a time. We also find out that Murtaugh is coming with Brian. So, gonna be great. Okay, then we have Ellen and Jocasta bitching back and forth again about how she's supposed to win over Cameron Grant. And how, wait, did I say that right? Is it Cameron Grant? Malcolm Grant, sorry. I knew I wrote Cameron in a wrong place somewhere. I have Cameron in my head because Jocasta is Mistress Cameron. And so I have all the Scottish names in my head, but she's supposed to win over Malcolm Grant. And one thing I will say, though, before I continue to pick at Jocasta, the actress who plays her, she was looking stunning in this episode. Okay, particularly the scene that I just mentioned, the one where her and Ellen are like walking along and like just taking digs at each other. Mostly Jocasta, let's be real. She looks gorgeous, so I'll give her that. She looks beautiful. And I don't know, she looked gorgeous. I was here for it. Okay, then we have Henry and Ned talking, and Henry explains that he received a letter about Ellen not being like pure and there being issues. And Ned is like, that is preposterous. Like, what are we talking about? And Henry is like, hey, we didn't listen to it. You know, obviously too, it's true that like Malcolm really wants Ellen, and so he probably wouldn't care anyway. Obviously, Malcolm's dad would care a lot more, but Henry's like, I'm just telling you, Simon might be being a problem, okay? Just putting it out there. And the fairies get brought up, of course. We got to talk more about the ladies who are going to do the thing, and about Craig Nadoon, and him again wondering if he'll see his bride there or not, his wife there. But then Ned lets Henry in on some of the buzz about Simon Fraser, and letting you know some of the rumors about people that he has raped and hurt, and just like how bad this guy is and everything. Yes, we know Simon, Lord love it. Sadly, we know he's not going to die in this show. He's going to live a long and prosperous life, unfortunately. Well, prosperous could be questioned, but dude is going to make it for quite a bit longer anyway. But that's some food for thought about who we're dealing with here. He's not going to take this alliance lying down, all right? No, he's not. In fact, maybe he would try to stop it from happening. And he does have his little spy there, the bug in our windshield causing problems. So yeah. All right, now it's dancing time. And this, of course, is the scene that has been really shown in a lot of like the advertisements and everything. They're dancing, and one of the women is going to be picked as the May Queen. And so Grant, of course, asked to dance with Ellen, but it's one of those, it's one of the dances with everybody involved. So Brian's able to slip in there and do a little whispering in her ear, and he's like, "Can you meet me somewhere?" And she's like, "I'll find a way to do it." And then she's back to dancing with Cameron. But the thing is, or I'm going to keep saying Cameron, I'm so sorry, with Malcolm Grant. And Murtaugh and Jocasta dance at one point in here, and she's just living it up for that. And then Murtaugh, though, is questioning Brian, like, were you talking about me with him? Like, were you saying the things? And then there's some awkward flirting with Ellen and Malcolm. It's cringeworthy. We see it. Now, Ellen gets picked as the May Queen, and she's supposed to pick the May King. And in the beginning, the only one who steps up there even is Malcolm Grant. But then Murtaugh decides to stand up. So then Brian decides to stand up there. And it's just ridiculous. Like, it's just crazy because this Murtaugh they have in here, like, you haven't even spoken to Ellen. And then he gets pissed drunk after she chooses Malcolm Grant, the guy she's supposed to have a marriage alliance with, as her king, has her making, and she didn't pick you, who she doesn't even know you. Like, he is acting like a love-struck teenager who's kissing a Justin Timberlake poster in her locker and expecting him to want to marry her, okay? Yes, I just made that analogy, all right? And then he goes and gets pissy drunk and is gonna cause some other problems because he didn't know any better, okay? So the thing is, all these lads rush up, and it's kind of like, who else is she gonna pick? Like, she can't pick Brian even if she wanted to, and like, he knows that. So, but I guess he didn't want Murtaugh to just be the only one who's not getting picked. Like, truly, there's also this. Brian never tells Murtaugh about his feelings for Ellen, to the point that Murtaugh has to see it happening himself. And this is the whole thing. Like, it's not like Brian is oblivious to the fact that Murtaugh is interested in Ellen, okay? Murtaugh has said from day one he's interested in Ellen. And the awkward part is that Brian caught her eye without knowing who she was. So then it was, you know, too late for him to stay away from his cousin's girl, or the girl his cousin wants. But it's now been quite a while, and he knows what Murtaugh's feelings are. Every time he's with Murtaugh's like, oh, I hope I get a chance with her. Murtaugh was even willing to let her name be besmirched so that maybe he has a chance, okay? Like, why are we assassinating the characters of people that we love later on? Like, I just don't understand it, and it is just killing me. Like, I understand you wanting to add nuance to Coleman Dougal and wanting to show, like, Simon Lord Lovett and, like, how he got where he is. But why are we character assassinating people like Murtaugh? Because Murtaugh looks like shit in this. You know, I don't feel bad for him for the thing. I mean, he shouldn't have got beat up by Bug. That was stupid. Like, because he was looking at her. But he just seems so pathetic in this episode. And then it makes Jocasta look pathetic too. And I'm just like, why are we doing this? Like, we know that he's in love with Ellen. We get it. But why are we 5 episodes in and Brian hasn't had a conversation about it, okay? And by the end of this episode, Brian will be handfast to Ellen. And he still hasn't told his cousin, bro, I'm going to marry Ellen. You know? Like, what's he doing? What's he doing? All right, so she picks Grant. Then we go back to Castle Leathers, and we have a very odd scene. So we have Maisie. One thing I want to say, there was a couple of you, and I didn't want to be all like, you're wrong, because I wasn't sure, but like, I knew the name of his seer was Maisie. It's the same seer that he has like forever, and it is the same seer that he has when Claire and Jamie go to see Lord Lovett in book 2. And so I knew Maisie wasn't Julia. Julia's not a seer. She's not a healer really either. She has interest in herbs and things like that, but she's not like truly along those lines at all. I think she just more is knowledgeable of it and curious and, you know, a bit of a herbologist on the side type of thing. And I think her talking about it so much is supposed to lead Claire to be interested in those things, which leads her to be a healer later on. But I knew that Julia wasn't going to be the seer. But it is very interesting to me because it's Beltain, you know, and it's a very magical time. Maisie is basically this like traveling seer, and she, kind of pays tribute in some ways to Lord Lovett, and stops to do his readings for him. And she has Julia crack an egg into a bowl because he wants to know if it's a boy that she's having. And, you know, if this will be the one who will be my heir, which, like, is just so insulting. In a way, well, because, like, we know Brian doesn't want that role. But also, he says all this stuff, like, just in front of Davina. Like, he's a villain through and through, we know. But anyway, she cracks it, and there's 2 yolks in it. And it's very interesting because she's like, there's a girl followed closely by a boy. And, of course, the girl she describes sounds very much like Claire. She has curly black hair and her eyes and things like that. And he's like, but is this one a boy? And she says, yes, this one's a boy who of great importance, who will unite clans for centuries to come. His fate is in the balance. And then there's more that she says, but that's just a rough thing. And then Lovett is like, will this be what I think it will be? Will someone of the Fraser line sit on the throne? Now, this is interesting to me as well. I'm not sure what that is supposed to refer to or what it means. I'm so intrigued by who this little bun in the oven is actually going to be. Will this child even live? Like, who will this child be, and who is, like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. And the hints for next week, they're really dragging us along too. So I'm scared what it's going to be. I don't know, because it seems like next week we might get pretty close to Henry finally finding out about her. But anyway, so it's very odd. Then we go back to the Beltain stuff here, and Ellen is trying to sneak away to see Brian. And you know, she has both Jocasta and Malcolm on her back. And so she foists the project off on Malcolm. She gets him to go help build, like, the altar for the May King and Queen celebration. And Jocasta just will not give her a break. Like, she is such a fucking bitch, you guys. Like, it's so gross. Like, it makes me feel icky, and it makes me hate her. And I don't like that. And her excuse is that it is Ellen's fault who Jocasta's married to. And Ellen says to her, she's like, I understand, obviously I'm in this situation now, but there were worse choices than this, you know? And sure, she can be angry about it, but, like, it's just, I don't know, turning on your sister does nothing for you but make you look like a see you next Tuesday. It is disgusting, and I hate it, and I don't understand why all of the Mackenzie siblings suck. Like, why do they all suck so much, okay? I guess it just irritates me because, like, I like Jocasta, okay? There are things that woman, she is a devious one, okay? But she does what she needs to do to survive, and it's one of the reasons why I have a soft spot for her in the big books, okay? And I mean, I love the actress who plays her in the show, fantastic. But that woman has lived through some stuff, okay? And I get it, this is supposed to be the Jocasta before that's happened to her. But it's just, I don't know. It's just so icky feeling. But either way, they come to a truce, and she's like, if you don't, you know, call into question my whereabouts, I won't call into question yours. And Jocasta also wants a necklace from her, and she's just like, okay, fine. So Brian and Ellen are finally able to meet by the river, and they feel each other's hearts, and they're like, my heart is beating so fast, and they have their first kiss, okay? And I wrote this in my notes. It is the middle of the day, and I know no quicker did I write that in my notes than who should see them kissing by the river but Murtagh. And that's going to send him on a spiral, but he sees them kiss. So that is ridiculous. So then they make their way into an overgrown church, and I guess this church is the church that everyone goes to, because that is definitely the church that Jamie and Claire get married in. And if you know, that's also the same church that Claire and Frank get married in. So that church definitely gets put back together at times, because in this one it's overgrown. When Jamie and Claire get married, it's still pretty rough, but they make it work. And eventually it must get restored, because that's also where Frank and Claire get married. Because she has a flashback to marrying Frank there all the years ago that they got married. But Anyway, so they don't have much time together. And she says, like, I'm not afraid of the dark because every night that's where I get to see you. And so they're kissing, smooching, getting hot and heavy. And he says, if we don't stop, I'm going to ruin you. And she's like, or he says, your reputation, everything. And she's like, please ruin me. So they're going to go for it. I'm not being sarcastic about this. This was a beautiful scene. I'm just not going to go beat by beat through their sex scene. So they are getting hot and heavy, and he ends up ripping off a piece of his tartan, of his kilt, and he binds them together, and they say vows. So they do the blood of my blood vow to each other, and now they're handfast. So that has happened. These two have handfast, and if you know anything about it, you're handfast for a year and a day. Now you can do that with no one watching. They're not the only ones who do that. And I'm sure they, well, I mean, I don't know if they'll be the last, but they certainly aren't the first ones to do that. But yeah. And then we have a very sensual, sexy sex scene for the two of them. And then we, are snuggling in the heather together, which I thought we didn't have much time, but apparently we have time to have sex and then just snuggle half naked for an indeterminate amount of time. Seems kind of risky to me, but there we go. So then we have Brian saying that he was going to make peace with his station in life. He wasn't hoping for anything. That was why, you know, he'd left for a year. He went on kind of this like pilgrimage. And he came back and he wasn't expecting anything as a bastard son. He was just going to do his best, live out his, you know, find things to do within his father's keep and work it out. And then he saw her, and he never wanted anything for himself until her. And now he wants more than he could ever imagine. And she says back, she says, I choose you too. And she's never had much of a choice about anything. But she picks him, and she's like, I choose you for myself, and this is one of the only choices that I get to make. Now, just to pause, like, I think that's a good statement to make, right? Because we have all of these people in her life, her siblings, I mean, and Ned to a certain degree in the state of her siblings, who are all bitter because it's like, oh, well, father let you have so much leeway and let you do so much. She is still a woman in the 1700s Scotland, okay? She has very little agency, and she is a fierce woman, and she pushes back, but at the end of the day, she doesn't have a lot of choices. And one of the only things she felt she got to choose was who she loves and who, you know, who she lays with and who she wants to make her life with. Now, I wanted them to maybe talk about what a plan is. These kiddos really did not talk about a plan at all. You know, I thought meeting at Beltain was going to be them finding a way to run away together. But really, it seems it was just a plan to see him. I'm confused. I thought we were going to run away together from this because she would be away from the eyes of her brother. And she doesn't really have anyone guarding her except Jocasta. And that's not what happens here. So, I don't know. I was a bit put off by that I thought we were going to make a run for it here. I don't know. Didn't you guys think that's what we were going to do? I don't know. Maybe I missed it. But that's not what happened. So I wrote in my notes, I was like, can we talk about like what we're going to do now? Like, how are we getting away? And we don't. They made love, they handfast, they cuddled a little, and then we go back to the regularly scheduled programming of Beltain, where she is doing this faux marriage ceremony with Malcolm Grant, and Malcolm, like, I don't know, I've skipped a lot, I need to pull back in here, but I'm just like, bleh. So, after they're, like, snuggling together, and they have this beautiful talk, which, again, this is the part I was conflicted about when I'm saying I didn't like this episode, because I loved this parts of it. I loved seeing them make this commitment. We're seeing like them, you know, this is more than just meeting up a few times. Like they're talking about the things they love and what they want. And so that's a great start. Then we flick back to for Murtaugh getting super drunk. And Bug punches him and says, if you look at her anymore, I'm going to kill you. It does kind of suck for Murtaugh that Brian's the one who is getting it on with Ellen, and Murtaugh keeps taking the hits for it. So that does kind of suck. But then we go back to Leathers, and Davina does something that I will probably never forgive her for. She's on my shit list now for good. And I can logic away a lot of it, right? Like I understand what she's doing for the part of her that, in all honesty, is probably a little bitter that her son with the Laird is not good enough, but he's going to have another bastard son, although we'll talk about that in a second. Going to have another bastard son, and that one's going to be the one who can rule everything. Like it is a bit unfair. But Davina tells the truth about Julia and says she was pregnant when she got here. A woman knows this. And he's like, has she said that she was already pregnant? And she's like, no, but like, I know. Which I literally just wrote this in my notes. Like, wow, way to be like hoes before bros, but I guess not. And he doesn't seem to care. It's very interesting. I don't know if he like already knows and is just like, I want another child or what. But he says, well, take care of her. Take her off of most of her duties. And he says that if you tell anyone else about this, I'll see you dead. So this will be very interesting now because he for sure knows now that this baby isn't his. And he's still going to go forward with a few things. Very interesting thing here. But again, I don't feel bad for Davina because you knew what could have happened to Julia by telling that. And you still chose to do it. So, fuck her. Like, really? Not impressed at all. Again, I understand the situation Davina's in, and I can separate that in one aspect, but in this aspect, I'm like, this woman is literally a slave here. She's been brought here. She didn't choose to be pregnant when she got here. Well, I mean, she chose to have a baby with her husband, and then's been ripped away. And because she didn't get rid of that baby like you told her to, and she's doing what she needs to do for herself and her child, she's somehow this deceitful wench. No, like, it's just gross. Like, it just is gross. Nobody is, like, fun to root for in this show. Like, really, just don't care for that. So then we go back to Beltain, and we have Henry watching the stone circle, and the dancers are there. And then we have Julia, who's stuck back at Castle Leathers. We have kind of this flash between the two there, where she's stuck and she pulls out her ring and she's just looking at it and thinking of Henry, and she's going to write a letter. And then we have Ned having another moment with Henry, and he's saying that he was in love once and it didn't work out, and eventually you're going to have to move on. And Henry's like, no, I'm never going to move on. And Ned is like, well, what if you never find her? And Henry, like, he's like, I will. And like, that's my boy right there. That's my boy. Okay, then he says, he's like, okay, you're not going to stop looking, but you should decide when you will stop looking. And then Henry says to him, he's like, did you ever love again? And Ned doesn't really answer him. So you can tell what the answer is. And of course, it makes us wonder, who did he love? So yeah, we flash between that and with Julia and him, just the camera goes between the two places a few times. Okay, then we have Malcolm Grant brings Ellen a token of his affection. And I have to say, this to me does continue to play into my theory, y'all, that I think Malcolm Grant is going to end up helping Ellen and Brian be together. I'll explain more of that in the end with my theories. But there's just something about him that, honestly, he feels too precious for this world. I know that's a weird thing to say, but he gives her this little trinket, a little heart like made, it's like wooden or bone or whatever. And he made it for her the first time they met when they were children. This man has wanted to marry Ellen since he was a child. And again, I'm Team Brian and Ellen all the way. But Malcolm Grant just seems like such a sweet man who has such a diabolical, evil dad too. Like, and he just wants Ellen. And, like, I feel bad for him a little bit. But again, we'll get to it in the theory part at the end. But, like, he seems like a good guy. Like, he seems like a good dude. And I don't know, I have feelings about that. Okay, then Jocasta comes across Murtaugh. He's slavering drunk. And they end up kissing. But then he says Ellen's name. And so then she stomps out of there crying. Which is obviously now we can see the full circle, because they don't show that scene again, but it now explains the scene before the intro song where Ellen is getting into the May Queen dress and Jocasta comes in and she's very pissy. That is what was happening right before that scene. Is Myrta called out someone else's name. And I will continue to say that I loathe all the stuff of Jocasta and Myrta now. They're making me hate those two with every scene they show of Jocasta being moony over him and Myrta being moony over Ellen and continually saying it. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Okay, so yeah, Julia and Henry being miserable again. Then the women dance on Beltain. And now we see Ellen dressed up like the queen. And we have the scene where like she and Malcolm are walking up to the like fiery arch that's put up there. And you have Myrta seeing Brian look at Ellen, and you see Ellen looking at Brian, and you see just everybody staring each other down. And then, of course, we have Julia writing a letter, which is narrating this part of it. And when it gets to the very end, Ellen has looked over at Brian, and then Grant goes in to like kiss her on the cheek, but it ends up being a lip lock right there in front of everyone. Just as Julia says, "I will burn for you, my love, always." And that was the end of the episode. So that took me a while to get through because I know I ranted about it. Okay, I know. And I know that maybe some of you who have only just started watching me for Blood of My Blood might be a little bit like, whoa, Jen, like calm down. And two things I have to say. One, yeah, I'm not really good at calming down about this stuff. I thought it would be a bit different with Blood of My Blood because it's like I haven't specifically read everything about this story, right? Like they're making up a lot of this. They're filling in blanks. They're filling in the little bit of info that we have. But it does piss me off because they are tarnishing things, right? And yes, that won't ever change how stuff happens in the book, and it won't ever change how stuff happens in the show. It still is like, if you're going to tell this story, why not make it authentic to the characters that you yourself have already worked on for a decade, you know? And it just pisses me off. So like I said, this is probably my least favorite one. It's hard to give a rating, but like legit, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to give this one a 6. Okay, I'm going to give this one a 6 because I still liked it more than I didn't like it. But the parts that I liked were very specific to the scenes with Henry and Ned. The scene with, all the scenes with Brian and Ellen, and, actually a couple of the scenes with Grant and Ellen too. Cause like I said, that is real stuff. Like she was going to marry this guy and I really like that character. I feel bad for him. And my theory thing I have about it is I think that when he finds out that she loves Brian Fraser, when he finds out that she loves him, I mean, I think he's going to be really hurt, but I think he's going to be that character who wants what's best for them. And I think he's going to help them in some way. I don't know which way it is. I don't know whether it's just talking his dad down from something or if he helps them escape away together or something. But I think Malcolm Grant is going to help Ellen and Brian be together somehow. Okay? And that will be why one of Jamie's names is Malcolm. That's what I'm getting from it, y'all. That's what I'm getting from it. Because like I said, throughout this, I'm trying to track where the names come from, okay? It excites me to do so. Let me have my fun. But yeah, the best scenes in here, I loved seeing Brian and Ellen together. Of course, they're seen in that church. That church, like, it was beautiful. Seeing them together the first time is very sensually done. They had him all up in, like, the hot boy, like, ponytail vibe going on. Looked very dashing. Definitely... it was a beautiful scene, and their scene afterwards talking together about what they want. I still don't understand why we haven't talked about a plan. We're now handfast, so this isn't just flirting around. Like, you're serious about this. So how are we supposed to make it happen? Nobody's talked about that yet. I thought that's what was going to happen here. And what we did is have sex and handfast and then go to the May thing. So how are we getting away together? This was the perfect opportunity where you're away from your brothers. Your sister's the only deterrent that you really have. I mean, yes, Ned is there too, but let's be honest, she could get one over on Ned if she needed to, okay? What are we doing? So I don't understand. I thought the point of meeting up there was that. I also... so I love those scenes, but I didn't like how Brian left Julia behind. Again, I know she needed to be left behind, but it made him look dumb. I didn't love anything that was Jocasta and Murtaugh in the entire episode. I don't understand what the prophecy over Julia's baby is. Like, is that really supposed to be like the Simon Lovett Jr. or something? Like, he knows he's supposed to have another, like, we know he has another son. Is that, like, is he somehow going to keep Julia and Henry's baby? Like, I don't understand where we're going with that, because he really wants this baby now. And the preview of the next one, Henry hears about, because now he's looking for pregnant women, right? Like, that's the point we're getting to. We're going to skip some time, it looks like, because he's going to now be looking for a woman who's had a baby. And it looks like he's going to speak with a midwife who says it wasn't good what happened. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means like he's going to take the baby from Julia and try to then like kick her off somewhere. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. And then, yeah, this one was tough for me. It's still beautiful to watch. And as I say, watching an hour of an Outlander show is still better than most hours of TV out there. But this one was a very frustrating one, right? Like, this is one of those episodes that when you binge it later on, you will probably stop in to watch the scene of Brian and Ellen together. And then you're going to bloop, skip right on to the next episode, because this was infuriating in a lot of ways. So anyway, let's wrap this up. I know this was more ranty. Just deal with it. You're here. If you made it this far, you know, you made it this far. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would rate this 1 out of 10. What you think about my theory about Malcolm Grant helping out somehow. He does just genuinely seem sweet, right? Like, he doesn't seem like the guy who will be super bitter when it goes bad. He's the guy who will be brokenhearted when it goes bad. And the reason I say that is because in the beginning, when he was turned away, you know, when Ellen wasn't willing to marry him, he was upset and he was leaving. But when he was stopped by Dougal, who beat the shit out of him, he wasn't mad at Ellen. His pride was dinged and he was sad because, again, the man has wanted her since they were children, okay? And to be fair, he's actually known her a bit. Whereas, like, Murtaugh, I mean, yeah, he has family, like, Fitz is it, like, he's never even spoken to her, right? So I can see Grant being sad, but I don't see him being bitter and angry and wanting to hurt Ellen because of it. I think he will be sad. That is my guess, okay? He just seems like a genuinely too good for this world type of guy. And I think when he finds out, he will help them. That's my guess. So anyway, there we go. That is my thoughts on Needfire, episode 5 of Blood of My Blood. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time. Bye.